Hello, I'm Eddie Wood, and you're listening to the Richard Petty Motorsports Podcast.
Hey, Petty fans, welcome to episode 14 of the Richard Petty Motorsports Podcast, presented by Petty's Garage. And that's right, we said 14. We're just going to skip over the number 13 like you would a floor on an elevator and move right into 14.
Moving right into 14, we have got a big-time guest. This is the one that we didn't want to tell you about. We kind of wanted to keep it a little secret, kind of keep it on off the radar.
Been working on this one for a few weeks now and finally got him in here and, man, lived up to expectations, I think.
Yep. Lots of cool stories. I mean, it's just awesome. I pinched myself the whole way through. Can't even believe we got to do it.
So, of course, the guy that we're talking about is Eddie Wood of Wood Brothers Racing. You know, he's a son of Glen Wood and been around, you know, in our sport for quite a while, seen a lot of things, had a lot of success, obviously, with the Wood Brothers and the famous 21 car. You know, if there's another car out there that's as famous and iconic in the sport of NASCAR as the 43, it's got to be that 21. So it was awesome having Eddie here. You know, we hadn't been here in quite some time and never really got a chance to go around through the Petty's Garage, Petty Museum buildings until now. And so, you know, when he arrived, we thought we would sit down and get rolling, and Richard and Dale took him and showed him everything, and that's just super cool.
Yeah, wasn't even mad about it either.
No,
We turned the corner and there's Richard Petty, Dale Inman, and Eddie Wood just talking.
Yep.
And we were just like,
just catching up.
Just cool. There it is.
Yeah. So, and hopefully that's how it feels like this podcast went. You know, we talked a lot about old racing stories, some current stuff, how Eddie's seen things through his eyes, and just a great conversation. So, don't want to put it off too much longer. Here's Eddie. First and foremost, thank you for making the trip down here today.
Yep, it's my honor.
We were talking earlier. You said this is first time you've been here since 84?
84, late 84.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we came to, actually, we had bought, you know, when Kyle was coming to work for us, we obviously was going from running 20 races a year to all the races, because he's kind of what brought us back running full-time, which we'd never run full-time ever until then.
Wow.
And started in 85, and we bought a car from Petty Enterprises, and I don't know the whole story about it, but it was hidden. And it was hidden. I was trying to figure out what garage it was in from what's here now, and I think we figured it out. It's up there kind of behind the original Mr. Petty's house up to the left. And Kyle had it hid up there. And we come down here in the middle of the night one night and got it. And it actually turned out to be the car that Kyle won his first race at Richmond. That was the same car.
Oh, it was?
Wow.
Yeah. It was a Hutch and Pagan car.
That's amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of hiding spots around here.
Yeah, it reminds me of our old shop that we had on the river. It's not big enough to start with. You start adding on, and it doesn't really matter, you know, where the door is or anything. You got to have more room,
right?
Yeah.
And so it's fixed exactly like what we did. It's much bigger than what we did, but it's chopped up the same way.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you could kind of compare and contrast the two shops. You know, we were talking with Dale earlier, you know, about when you go to y'all's place, you see a lot of pictures on the wall where the 21 cross the line first, and then you come here and you see all the pictures on the wall. It's the same events or other events where the 43 might have come across first, and it just made me think, like, man, if you go to the Petty's place, you go to the Wood Brothers place, and you put it all together, and you really got a lot of NASCAR history complete right there.
Yeah, we got a picture as you come in our museum. It's the picture of Elliott Sadler winning Bristol with John Andretti finishing second. And I think it's probably the last time they finished 1-2.
Yeah.
And that was in 2001. But, you know, 2 weeks ago at Talladega, at one point it was a 43 and a 21 late in the race.
Yep.
And I actually sent
we got a lot of people commenting about how great it was to see. It's like we talk about how the Woods and the Pettys have always been friends. You know, I think our fan base is also, you know, if they're not rooting for us, they want to see the 21 win. They want to see us both do well together. I think that's really unique.
I think it is too, because I mean, it was to me, and I mean, I sent a text to Edsel Ford, was watching the race, and he sent right back like, "Man, that is really cool," and you know, it was just I don't know how many people even were paying attention to it because
Mm-hmm.
so much goes on anymore, but I was.
Oh yeah.
Well, you had Dale as probably Dale and Richard, best tour guides you can ask for, I guess.
I did, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, you got lucky today.
I guess. I mean, they showed me all. What's so cool about this place is they've got a story for every little room, and that's the way our shop was. You had a gear room, you had a room for this, a room for that, you had a room for hiding stuff. And they did too.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's so many things that's the same, and you didn't really have anything to do with each other, but it was the way they, their mindset was in comparison to ours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what made you guys all so successful, probably too. I'm sure it helped.
Yeah, it just worked out. I mean, and it's just like I said, they've we've been friends ever since the first time I ever met them. Which is in '67, and I don't know, just always been close to Dale for just forever.
From the first time you met him and he dropped you to your knees.
He did. He did. He didn't get me today. He'll probably get me on the way out, but he didn't today. He didn't get me, but man, he took me to my knees that first day.
I can only imagine what it. I mean, it's painful now. I can only imagine what it would have been like back then.
I mean, those guys like Dale and my Uncle Leonard, the arm strength that those guys had. But I used to see them cut spoilers with 10 snips. They'd be 3/16 thick and cut them with 10 snips.
Really?
And just never stop, go all the way across it. I barely could even go an inch.
Mm-hmm.
But but they all changed tires, and the things that they worked on, it took a lot of strength, back then. And they were just strong people. The upper body was strong, and Leonard carried his own tire, and I know Dale did some too.
Mm-hmm.
Just think about carrying your own tire and changing tire today.
Yeah.
And some people, and it's kind of going back to that.
Mm-hmm.
You see it every now and then, but it's really cool.
Yeah, that's neat. So I wanted to ask if a casual fan or listeners listening to us and they hear the Wood brothers, I'm sure they think of obviously your dad Glenn and your Uncle Leonard, but the Wood brothers family and everybody that was involved in racing, I think, is much larger than many realize. Could you paint the picture of kind of the family tree and everybody that's been involved over the years? Maybe tough to do everybody, but
they started in 1950. Kind of as a hobby, as a joke or whatever. Just a group of them got together and decided, let's get us a race car, and they did. And fast forward, but it was all the brothers. It was brothers, and they all kind of pitched in, and then it was like, who's going to drive it? Well, then this one was, that one was. Well, then they all kind of backed out and left my dad standing there, and he said, okay, I'll drive it.
Yeah.
And that's how that started. But then they get on up into the the late 50s and early 60s when the pit stop stuff really became important to them, and they started focusing on that. At one time you had my dad, of course, was driving it, but Leonard was changing the rear tires, and another uncle, Ray Lee, was changing the fronts, and my uncle Delano was a jack man. And then we had our first cousin named Ralph Edwards, and he was carrying tires and helped gas. And there was another guy that lived, 10 miles, 15 miles down the road named Ken Martin, and he was with him for a long time. He was the gas man. And it was just like that that whole time. And during the ones that worked full time on the car, like every day as a job, was Leonard and my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And Kenny Martin helped. Like I said, he was a tobacco farmer in North Carolina. He lived just below the state line, and he worked when he could. And then the brothers would just help, at night during the week, because they had regular jobs. But then come time to go to the racetrack, it was usually my dad and Leonard and probably Kenny. And then, as we got older, we started working full-time there. Then it was 4 of us full-time. And then a little later on, Hilton Tatum came to work for us. And he worked for us for a long, long time until we moved to Charlotte, and he stayed with us a little while. And he wound up working at RCR. Actually retired from RCR. So, it's a lot of people involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
But, most of it was family and friends that especially in the early days. And a lot of race teams was like that. I know the Petties were. There was a lot of people that would go to the races on Sunday that weren't really getting paid. They just enjoyed it and wanted to help and be a part of it. And I think that's how it all worked back then. Because, the money wasn't like anything like it is now, of course, but it's probably all relative. Now you can't get enough because you're going to spend it all. And back then it was the same way. You raced with what you had, and then people helped you and things like that. But it's always been a family deal. Like I said, I started working full time, going to all the races in '72 when Lynn, my brother, got out of school. And then we would take 2 vehicles. We'd take the hauler, which was a cab over C800 Ford with the ramp truck. Excuse me, and then we'd have a pickup truck, and it would have all the wagon and the gas cans and some wheels, because you couldn't carry it all on that little truck. And that's the way we went to the races.
That's actually was a question I had in my list. We wanted to know kind of what that convoy kind of looked like starting out. Did you ever have aspirations to drive at all, or did you know from the beginning that you wanted to work as part of the crew?
When I was like, now they start them at 6 years old, 5 years old. Back then, you need to have your driver's license and stuff like that, because it was hard to go racing. You just couldn't go get it. So when we were my brother Lynn and I were kind of the age to race, if you wanted to drive, it was just the beginning of the Pearson stuff. And it was winding down with we'd had AJ and Donnie Allison was driving. It was in the late 60s, early 70s, and I was a senior in high school in '70. And you thought about, I'd like to drive a race car. But then you're working on it every day, and all of a sudden you're 22, you're 24, then you're 26, and you missed it. But looking back, I think if you'd have wanted to drive, if I'd have wanted to really drive, you would have figured out a way. So that kind of tells me I was, and Lynn too, was content working on them. I always wanted to run the only car I ever used to dream about or wished I could go do, I wanted to get a Pinto with a Boss 429 and run Bowman Gray Stadium with it. Which was exactly the wrong engine to run Bowman Gray with. But in the 70s, the Pintos and Gremlins,
AMCs.
The AMC, that was the coolest. Those 2 cars were the cool modifieds. Richie Evans had it, and Bodine and all them guys from up north that would come down and race at Martinsville.
Is it true the Pinto was more aerodynamic backwards than forward?
It could have been, because it kind of looked like a bean, But they made good modifieds. I mean, they were really popular and fun. Kind of an odd story. In '73, at the end of the season, we had 2 of those so-called Pure Later Mercuries that David Pearson won all those races in. It was 2 of them, and we still have one. And by the way, it's going to be at Darlington.
This weekend?
It's Sunday.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, Leonard's going to drive it around.
Oh, man.
No way. That's so cool.
It's going to be really cool. And Dale's going to drop the green flag this weekend, too. So that's really cool. But that car got crashed with David and Charlie Glotzback at Charlotte in the fall race. And we were having to go to a different body style, a 73 Mercury, the next year, so there was no need to fix it. So that car sat in our basement for a long time. We didn't throw it away or anything. It just sat there, and it had all the stuff that you could make a new car with already taken off of it, but it still had the suspension. It wasn't torn up on it. So Clarence Pickrell of Clarence's Steakhouse right there at Martinsville, he had modifieds at that time. So he bought that thing and took the springs and some of the running gear and the suspension and made the first Gremlin out of that car. And Paul Radford drove it at Martinsville, sat on pole, led the whole race, that weekend. And that's kind of, our dad always raced modifieds and Sportsman's, but modified, just like they ran at Martinsville, this, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They've all just been special to me. That because of that.
Mhm.
But that.
Did you go watch that race?
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
I went, and my wife Carol and I went and bought tickets, bought them online, downloaded them.
Mhm.
We went and sat in turn 1, and I went and bought a dozen hot dogs. Stood in line for an hour. Bought a dozen hot dogs. I took what I didn't eat at the racetrack. I took home with me. But I had a blast.
That's awesome. And when was the last time you had sat in the stands at Martinsville before then?
Probably in the mid '70s. L.D. Ottinger won the race, and Dale Earnhardt Sr. was just getting going. He was driving Sportsman's at the time. I think he finished second or third that day.
Mm.
But that's been a long time.
Yeah.
But I sat almost within probably 50 feet of where I sat that day, as it turned out.
Really?
It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's neat. That's the track I grew up going to,
Yeah.
and up until before I started with the race team in 2019, like up until 2018, I missed maybe a handful of Martinsville races in my life, but it's always been my favorite.
Yeah, I like Martinsville, and we kind of struggled over there. We've never really been very dominant over there. Even back in the Pearson days, we did actually win a race over there. But the 43, I can remember that thing. I see the picture of the car right there. They had a way of, and Dale would explain it better than me, but the thing would lay over with the left side. Actually, the left side didn't do anything. It just sat there, but the right side would fall. It would go down in the corner and just fall.
Mm.
And it looked like it's going to turn over, but he wore everybody out.
Yeah.
Race after race. I think he's won like 15 or 16 races over
15,
there.
I believe.
Yeah,
Which is,
15.
I mean, most people just want to win 15 races in their career,
Yeah.
let alone at Martinsville.
Yeah, they were really, really special over there. It didn't matter, which year or what brand car they had.
Mhm.
They were always fast.
What was that track for you guys then that really was y'all's bread and butter?
Probably Daytona.
Mm-hmm.
I just always had kind of a special, love for Daytona. The Speed Weeks part, you go down every February, and even the Firecracker, when we ran it on July 4th. That's just kind of always been a special. That in Martinsville is probably most special
Mm-hmm.
too to me. And I love Bowman Gray Stadium.
Yeah.
Mm.
Dude, we have got to go to
I haven't
Bowman
been.
Gray.
Yeah. Oh,
I
man.
lived in Winston, and I never went to – I did not go to Bowman Gray.
I wasn't told that.
Yeah, I know. But,
Well, it's funny you said that. A couple of years ago, I was over there with I would go over there. It'd be a Saturday night that we weren't racing or something, and I would go, and I'd go over there by myself and just walk around, because I remember where my mom and Lynn and my sister, we would sit in the grandstand. It's what is now the backstretch. It's just under that deal where they call the spotter stand now. I mean, to the very seat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd always try to sit there. But I was over there a couple of years ago, and Bobby Labonte was over there. And he was just fascinated by these. He'd only been there once. And I said, you hadn't been here for him? He said, I'm ashamed to say I live like 20 minutes from here. I've never been over here.
Yeah.
I said,
Yeah.
man, it's like you. You're ashamed of yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Well, now it bit him, so now he's driving one of those smart modifieds, actually for a kid that works for Mike Smith is driving his car, and I just loving it. So, but that's one of my favorite places.
I wish we had more companion races with the modifieds. So it's always cool to see them in Loudon.
Yeah,
When we go there, it's cool to see them back at Martinsville. They just run so well there.
yeah,
So.
they just something about them. I don't know what it is, but there's something about them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked earlier with Dale. I want to get your thoughts on this. Is kind of changing the subject, but we were on the modified train, and we were talking about back in the day when you had your convertibles and hardtops and all the different classes that might run together. Is that rain?
That rain is coming down.
Oh
Really?
my goodness!
Wow,
I thought we had static going on in there or something.
man.
Yeah, these buildings are old.
Yeah, it's our shop, our museum has got it's a metal building with a metal roof, and it's just like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we had a meeting here because this rained 2 days in a row, and it hasn't rained in 3 weeks. And Rebecca was sitting over there, and she goes, "Whew, all right, this is about the time we all go to sleep."
Yeah, that was the deal. My grandmother's house, my grandmother Wood, lived in a 2-story old style house, but it had a tin roof.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember being over there, and it was just like when it would rain in the morning like that, you just want to lay there in bed all day.
Yep. Sorry, Bradley, where were you? The rain
has interrupted us. Yeah. My question is, I've heard this thrown around a little bit, but would you ever think it would be a good idea at some point during the year to try, maybe on like a Daytona road course or a big track, try a race where you have multiple series on the track at the same time, similar to an IMSA, where there's, the Xfinity guys, they might be racing each other, and the Cups are racing each other, but they're on the track at the same time? I think it would be...
Throw the trucks out there.
Yeah.
Just have a free-for-all.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying do it at Bristol. I'm saying at a Daytona road course or, something big like that. I wonder if that would be interesting.
I'd never really thought about that. I don't know. It's as competitive as each series is now. I think everybody would probably get caught up with racing the people in their series.
Mm-hmm.
I never really thought about that. But, I have thought about like the 24-hour race at Daytona and, the difference in speed from the different classes. You got those prototypes that just look like a bullet, and then you got the lower classes that don't, they're might not be within 5-6 seconds of it. It's probably pretty interesting. The safety part of it, the closing rate on the cars, that would probably be the biggest concern is, braking and running onto a car that's 30, 40 miles slower than you are. But they do it, and they do it well. It'd be,
I think for our guys to do it, it would have to be, there would have to be some training involved, because those guys that race IMSA, they've been doing it, so they're used to seeing these rocket ships fly by. Whereas
they do, and they got super brakes. I mean, which we've got good brakes too. But to do it very, for a very long period of time would probably be pretty hard. But I don't know. I've never heard anybody think of that. That's a new one.
Be pretty interesting.
I'm putting it out there.
We'll put it out there in the space.
Hey, as crazy as this all-star race format we got, that's, I feel like I could throw that out there.
Yeah, that all-star race is going to get interesting.
Yeah.
Which they always are. To me, it doesn't really matter the format. It still comes down to 10 at the end most of the time or whatever, and it pays big money to win it, and it's all or nothing, and that's the way they approach it. All the stuff leading up to it, I don't think it really matters. It's still that from 10 down or whatever, how you
Yeah, all the heats and pre-main event stuff is probably not going to have a huge effect on the outcome of the thing.
Right.
Excuse me.
It's anymore. You catch just like Kansas, there at the end, how crazy that was. We were, around 10th place or something, and it kept having cautions and get a little further. Just sometimes it works out for you, and sometimes, like Blaney was on the front row and somebody got him tangled
the 5
up.
got him sideways.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden he finishes, out of the top 20, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's not over till it's over. And I think that's what's so exciting about it is even when you think you know what's going to happen, you don't, because it's just not over. And you can be, some of these guys are good enough that they can be 1 or 2 laps down, from whatever happened to them early in the race. All of a sudden they win the race.
Yeah.
And it's just nobody's ever out of it.
Well, I got to tell you, I know pretty much how well you guys are doing all throughout the race, because my favorite Twitter follower is at Wood Brothers 21, which is, I know, is John. And he cracks me up, man.
Yeah.
I love reading his tweets, because he's 100% authentic, honest, whether it's good, bad, or ugly.
Yeah.
And
he scares me sometimes.
I was going to ask, how does from you? Do you follow along and keep a close eye on that?
Well, he's actually got me hooked in it. Like, where if you see some old picture, that's me.
Okay.
Most of the time, it's me. But I don't get in the middle of it very often. But he just keeps up with it and he lives it. And I think he did a piece with someone a week or so ago. The difference, he's part of our race team. He's part of our company. He's part owner in the company, and so when something goes wrong, it's more than just it's okay. It's we did something wrong, we wrecked, left a wheel loose, whatever. It's a bigger deal to him,
right?
Because it affects him more. He's part of it, and it won't stop at the end of the race. It lingers on, because we go over every race. We're still talking about Kansas, and it's more personal to him, I guess. And so it's a little different than when somebody gets mad at us, and that happens a lot too. He gets that, and if you guys keep up with your social media, I'm sure every now and then you get blasted over something.
Oh my goodness!
And because people, and the good news to that is people's paying attention to you.
Yeah.
They're good or bad. They care and they're watching, and that's kind of the way he looks at it. But it's harder for him because he's still got to maintain a level deal with it.
Yeah.
When it's really easy, he could be real happy about something, but he can't say that either. You can't. If you're doing stuff, and I learned this a long time ago. You never jump up and down or anything or show any emotion during the race until it's over.
Yeah.
And you don't, because you see people.
I learned that at Talladega.
Yeah, you see people,
a couple weeks ago.
Jump up and down because they throw the white flag. You may be leading the race. Well, you may come back on the hook. It's not over till it's over.
Yep.
And I've lived that many times. And like I said, at one time at Talladega, it looked like the 43 and 21 was going to be the two cars. Caution comes out and it gets re-racked, and 43 got crashed.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be that day, I guess.
Yeah, it's just when it's your day, and you can't. I'm kind of believe if it's your day and you're supposed to win that race, you're going to win it. You're not going to mess it up. But if it's not your day, it's just not.
Yeah, that's how I feel about we're doing a John Andretti throwback this week, and we spent a lot of time this week talking to folks like Chris Hussey and others here that were part of that team, and everybody kind of has the same common denominator like you're talking about, that they felt pretty confident going in, and there was really never a doubt in John's mind, or really anybody on the team, that they were going to win that race that day. It just kind of knew it, and it's weird how that it's weird to hear that.
I've lived it. A quick story: when Trevor won the 500, we were staying in a condo. We'd rented a condo over on the beach, and I had a big suitcase because you're down there for 2 weeks, and my wife was going to leave early because she had to work the next day, so she was going to leave like 3/4 way through the race, and she said, "You want me to take your suitcase?" Because I was flying back because we had to go straight to Fontana the next week. And I said, "You want me to take your suitcase back?" I said, "Nah, I think I need to leave it here." And I don't know why. I said, "You need to leave it here," because I had no intentions of spending the night at all, because he's going to run a race, jump on an airplane, go home. But I said, "I don't know, just leave it here. I might need it." And I, to this day, don't know why. But then Trevor wins the race. We didn't leave the racetrack till, 10, 11 o'clock that night. Then they had a breakfast for the winner the next morning.
Oh, yeah.
And so you needed clothes.
Yeah, right.
And because normally I wouldn't have nothing but, whatever I wore to the racetrack. And so I did. In turn, I needed it. But you just get these feelings sometimes. And I've had that feeling one other time.
Welcome to Petty's Garage. Every one of our strut bars and coil covers are handmade right here in my hometown, Level Cross, North Carolina. Now, you probably know my favorite color, but we still make these things in every color you can imagine. You've got the power to make your car go and show exactly how you want. Visit Petty's-Garage.com to check out all the parts, engines, and tunings we've got to offer.
And I'm going back years, let's go back to the 70s, that you've felt pretty well, assured that if you didn't win it, Richard was going to win it. But you usually knew, because it was like 6 or 8 cars. There was more cars that could win races back then than a lot of people probably think. Because you hear people talking about, well, it was 21 and 11 and 43 and a 12, but there was more cars than that. It was competitive then too. But and there's days that you didn't run well in practice, on happy hour, and so there's no way we're going to run good today. And all of a sudden, you make a change or two race morning, just throw something at it, and it runs, and you're shocked. And I've had those feelings too, that there's no way you're going to run good on a particular day, and because of how practice went. But then you turn up and you do. And it's just you just don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
Yeah, you try all you can, I guess, to prepare and study and test and simulate and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
but it's until you unload and get to going, it's really hard to get a gauge for it, right?
Yeah, I mean, and just think how during just pick a race, then just pick a lap, or after a pit stop, your cars change, or the track change, conditions change, and if you don't keep up with the changes, you're going to be in the back. That's what's so hard about it. You got what you got. Everybody's running. It's under green. And all of a sudden a caution comes out, everybody comes in and gets tires. It's a new race.
Yep.
You may be better, you may be worse. And most of the time you need to be better, because somebody's going to work on their car and they're going to be better. And that's just how, competitive it is. I mean, you get into this, today's world, where you half a pound of air and, these 1/32 shim that use on the front, it's crazy, but it matters. It's almost like, years ago, you go to Talladega or go to Daytona. You go in December for 4 days. You go in January for 4 days, and sometimes you would go back in December and January for 4 more days, and you'd run from daylight to dark and throw everything you could think of at it. You might gain a tenth, maybe 2 tenths, if you were lucky. But everything mattered in those days on restrictor plate racing. Now I think we race every week like that. Even the shorter tracks, Martinsville, everything matters, because the box is so much smaller that you're working in, and anything you can make better is a bigger advantage, or it helps your car more. It's just so competitive. It's just I don't think people really understand just how hard it really is, and it's always been hard. Dale's favorite saying is,
it ain't always been this easy.
It ain't always been this easy. And that it's always been hard. And the stuff that I think in the old days, and when I say old days, I'm not going back as far as Dale can, but for instance, he was talking about signing in. You had to stop and get a pit pass every Thursday or Friday whenever you checked in. When they came with hard cards, that's probably the biggest improvement in racing in my career. Is when you got a hard card, because when they first got them, only the owner and the crew chief got them, and the driver. So, like Lynn and I, we didn't have one. Well, Leonard could go in, my dad could go in, but we couldn't. We'd have to go sign in. And and then they all of a sudden, everybody had them.
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
I had never been in the infield of a race until I started with the race team at the beginning of 2019, and I got my hard card and went to Daytona, and I was like, "You mean I can go anywhere with this?" And it was like, "Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Yeah, this is the greatest thing ever."
I'm telling you, I'd rather lose my driver's license than my hard card.
Oh yeah,
or credit card,
especially with how much they charge you to get another one too.
Oh yeah, I've done that too. You have that thing around your neck, and after the race, you take your shirt off, and it goes with it. I've left them on the ground, and fortunately somebody would notice it and pick it up for me. But the older I get, the more I do that.
Yeah, I've, knock on wood, hadn't happened to me yet. But I wanted to go back and ask about, we talked a lot earlier when Kyle came to drive for you guys, and how I know he said he's like a third son or whatever, but when that partnership, or when it was kicked off that he was going to be driving for you guys, y'all had a wedding.
Yeah.
Whose idea was that, and how did that all come together? I've never seen anything else like it.
There's never been anything like that. They did it at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and did it like on a Friday or Saturday afternoon after practice. But we were sponsored by 7-Eleven at that time. Kyle had the sponsorship because he was sponsored by them the year before. And it could have been Dave Fulton. If you guys know Dave Fulton.
Heard the name.
Yeah, he's still around. He was the former Wrangler guy. He did Earnhardt and Ricky Rudd for Bud. And then he changed marketing companies or something, but he wound up working for 7-Eleven. But it could have been his idea. Now, he may not own up to that, and then he may take credit for it. I don't know, but we did it, and it was a lot of big deal about it. Chris, help me. Trying to think who the preacher was.
Oh, Ken Squire.
Squire.
Yeah,
Squire. Yeah, I mean Humpy and everybody. I mean, everybody was there. I mean, it was a super big deal, and what was so special about all that is it was just a lot of people, the media, and think that like it'll never work. How can you have this crowd that raced against this crowd? How can that ever work? Mm-hmm. It was one of the most special times in my whole racing career. Wow. I mean, Kyle and I and Lynn, we just got along, and like I said, it was so many things that he grew up in. His world was the same as ours, and we was just, like I said, he was on the blue side and we was on the red side. Mm-hmm. It was so many cool things, and but we run really well together. We finished top 10 in points and won a couple of races, and it was just a special time. And now, like I said, Kyle's just like a brother to Lynn and I. I mean, it's just we were talking the other day, and when I was younger, like if I hadn't grown up being in the family I'm in, I'm sure I would have been a Petty fan. No doubt. And Kyle has said he would have probably been a Wood Brothers fan. So he may have been. I should have been born a Petty and him a Wood. But it's just and the whole relationship with the Pettys, with Dale and Richard, all of them has just always been really close. Mm-hmm. And even when they had
that's probably because there's not a whole lot of people. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of reasons, but probably because there's not a whole lot of people that can relate to each other like you guys can.
And maybe that's it, because you kind of know what they're thinking and what they felt, and they've had ups and downs just like us, and we've all had a lot of up and downs, but you kind of know how they feel. It's just, and it's always been that way. And even when they raced with the Pearson Petty crash at Daytona in '76, nobody was mad. We weren't. We won the race. We won the race, but they weren't mad. Because I think we raced at Rockingham. I think we weren't running all the races, and they may have went to Richmond the next week and then Rockingham, because they ran that car that they crashed at Rockingham. Yeah, we ran ours at Talladega. Because we had another car. We only had two cars at the time. But through that whole thing, it was, you just kind of talk about it, and it gets brought up every now and then. Mm-hmm. Dale and I talk about it, like, during COVID, Dale and I talk almost daily. Mm-hmm. Like, I know where he's going, what he's getting ready to do. He knows where I'm at. It's just, I don't know, it's just a special... I don't know. If I had to say, you have friends, and everybody's got friends, but then there's another level of it, and that's where we are. Mm-hmm. It's just another level. It's I guess the friendship, you could go as far as you could go to be family. Mm-hmm. You're not family, but you might as well be. And I consider the whole Petty family part of my family. Mm-hmm.
I guess we didn't even realize to the extent of that was we had Chris Hezzy on a few weeks ago, and we always talk to the folks that we come on, who would be a good person to join the podcast, who's got good stories, good insights, somebody that NASCAR fans or petty fans want to hear from. And Chris is like, well, Eddie Wood would be great.
He didn't hesitate.
Yeah,
he didn't even think about it. He was like, you need Eddie Wood.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, that would be amazing. And he goes, yeah, I'll text him when we wrap up from here.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. I remember when he texted me. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that easy, huh? And he's like, well, I talk to him all the time, and I mean, him and Dale are on the phone at least every day, And I was like, I knew y'all were good friends, but I maybe didn't realize you're that close. And
yeah. Chris got a great collection of old pictures.
Oh,
yeah,
man, the best.
Yeah, and he does such good research on them. We've got pictures. My mom kept all the pictures. In the old days, you would get these black and white glossies that T. Taylor Warren would take, and which I think that's all Getty now. And then Don Hunter, I think Don Smile owns that now.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got so many, and we didn't take them, they did, but they're pictures, of our family and the racing and stuff like that. And we had them digitized, actually had Don Smile to do it for us, and try to get them in an order.
Mm-hmm.
And it must be 2,000 of them.
Wow.
Well, that's 2,000 of probably another of 4,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got in our museum, they're all around the wall, and they're mostly 8x10s. They're one of one, and we've not. We need to scan them, and it's just hard.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to Rebecca and Sharon out there about the pictures. Somebody will call you and say, "Go find a picture of this car in 19 whatever."
Right.
It's hard because we're not organized well enough to punch it in and there it is.
Yeah.
You just got to go through them, just looking at them manually, and that's something we've got to do, and I'm sure they do too. It's just so many pictures of, and the petties are in a lot of our pictures, especially the car, because they race so much together, and then you go back, to the pre David Richard and Cale Richard, whatever. You get into Lee and our dad. There's a lot of those, and like Dale was talking about Richard running that convertible at Daytona. There's a picture in our museum of Richard in the thing.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. It's just, I can't explain it.
Yeah.
It's good though.
Yeah. Did Kyle take did he bring any of the petty secrets to the Wood brothers at all when he, that stint?
Well, I mean, there's.
Or kind of say, oh, so you guys do it that way. Were there any differences?
There was things that they did. Everybody does all the same things so far as putting race cars together and how you go to the track and what you work on. I remember one thing, Kyle was big on stagger, and Leonard was too, because I think Leonard and probably could have been Lee, whoever, were one of the first groups that really paid attention to tire stagger, front and rear, and just they was big on front tire stagger, and we were big on rear. Well, then you put the two together, you got a better piece because you're focusing on both ends of the car, and just things like that. Racing changes so quickly. Like by the time whatever you did last year is old news, and so there wasn't a lot. And I mean, I don't know how to say this, but even with Dale and I, we talk about stuff we did and, this race and that race, but then there's things you don't talk about. He doesn't talk about them and I don't talk about them. Yeah. And you kind of wish you could. And if you did, you're probably talking about the same thing.
Right,
yeah. Probably.
It's just like a level of respect for, because it's still, the 43 is one race team and the 21's another, and you just but the good part about that is what you do talk about is real. It's not mechanics and mechanical stuff and cars and stuff. It's people and your family, his family, and this our respect for each other's family, I guess.
Yeah, people get so caught up, or race fans sometimes can get very caught up in, the specifics of the cars or the race formats or stage racing or not stage racing or when cautions are thrown or
if we do more dirt or not.
Anything like that. And that's all a lot, part of it and part of what we do. But, our hope with this podcast and just in general is to show that, racing's about people. It's about groups of people, relationships, families, good and bad, all that. Like that's when you're inside it and you see it, that's really what it's all about. And the rest of the stuff is just part of whatever you're dealing with at the time.
Yeah, it's just noise.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, and I've told people said this. Okay, I was born in '52, so I remember the '60s or the racing in the '60s.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember anything about the '50s, so I depend on Dale and Leonard to tell me, if I got a question about somebody or something will pop up, because Chris Hussey will put a picture up. It'll be something in the '50s that he's found.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't really understand that, so I'll call Dale.
Yeah.
Or I'll go find Leonard and I'll say, explain this. Who was that guy and stuff like that. And I don't know. I look forward to talking to him every day. Because when he calls, I just go outside. My wife said, "That Dale?" Yep.
See you in a little bit.
See you in a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to go talk to Dale.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care where we're going unless I got to leave, go somewhere. I'm going to go talk to Dale, and she knows that. And but then she's really close to Dale too, and Mary. Because just know them. Actually, years and years ago, and this would probably be in the '80s. Mary and my wife Carol played on the same softball team as did Lynn's wife Nancy. They had a softball team that played like the local whatever in Martinsville, but it was at that time they called it Grand National.
Mm-hmm.
Wives softball team.
Is that what Chris Hussey said that
he drove Tina and all them up there, I think.
Yeah,
I
think that was one of their first dates or something.
Yeah, it probably was.
Mm-hmm.
It was in Martinsville, and Tina and Mary. I mean, they was professional softball players. I mean, they were good.
Yeah.
And my wife and Lynn's wife was pretty good, but they were serious. I'm talking serious about it. But they whoever they played, I think they beat them. I saw a picture of it not long ago, and it's amazing who was in it. And you don't think about it at the time, but looking back, it was a big deal.
Yeah, they say that Tina can hit a ball further than anybody else in Randolph County. Male or female, doesn't matter. She can hit the ball further than any of them.
Wouldn't surprise me a bit, because they were fast, and they could field. And I don't remember who pitched. Tina may have been the pitcher. I can't remember, but it was quite a ball game.
Yeah.
I love how at each episode we do, we always have, connections or the same things continue to get brought up or intertwined into different stories, and it's super neat because we don't ever plan it. It's just cool.
You can't plan. It's like a race. People talk about having a plan to race today. What you can't make a plan, because as soon as you start or the race starts, it changes. And you're chasing it. You're not going to have a plan that's going to play out, because you're always behind it, because you're trying to play catch up and then get ahead of it with the next adjustment or whatever. But like I said, I think it's what makes racing so fascinating is it's you can't predict it.
Yeah.
You think you can, and sometimes you can, and you may be right, but 9 times out of 10. It's not going to be that way.
It's a different world. That's what I've learned. The longer I've been in racing, it's just like it's a completely different animal.
Yeah,
so much is out of your control.
A lot of fun, but different.
I mean, football is kind of the same way. They're not over till they're over, and people, teams can come back from 23 touchdowns down and win, and racing's kind of like that. It's just nobody ever gives up. It's probably the most hard-headed, never give up, never die group of people on earth that race cars.
Yep.
Chris, how are we looking on time right now?
I think we got another 10.
Okay. Yeah. I want to ask about this this motor that Leonard just wrapped up that he basically created by hand. What's the scale of that?
It's about half scale. It kind of started when COVID hit, and Leonard had, we got that museum in Stuart, which is our old race shop. So we've still got all the machinery there, and then we got a shop in Mooresville with machinery stuff too. But it wound up, he needed to stay in Stuart because he was driving back and forth and lived down there for a while. So Lynn and I were trying to figure out we need to have another project. We get projects for him. He's built a half-scale Lotus, like we were talking about, that Jimmy Clark Lotus, and I mean it's down to the.
Can we come see this?
Oh yeah,
we gotta come. We gotta go take a look at that.
Definitely.
Yeah, you need to come see. And he's made several of them, and he made a Lotus. He made a little modified back seater, a 37 flatback coach that like my dad drove in the '60s, and so. We said we got to come up with some. So Lynn said, "What about just make a little 351? Like a little racing engine." So okay, well, why don't we make one that's cooler than that? Let's make a 427. So we have a 427 tunnel port on a stand in our museum, and so we can go by that, and we'll make it out of aluminum, and he just make a little one. That's just kind of how it started. So. Fast forward a little bit, I was on the phone with Edsel Ford, and I was telling him about it because he's always interested in the projects Leonard does. And I told him he was making a 427. He said, "Hey, you need to make it like the '67 Le Mans winner that A.J. Foyt and Dan Gurney drove." And I said, "Yeah, that would be good. The headers would be hard because the headers on a normal 427, just like anything here, goes
come
down."
Out and, yeah.
Well, on the GT or on that Ford GT that they were running that won that race, they go out the back they look like spaghetti.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, like that'd probably be hard. Well, Leonard can do it. So he had already started on the normal 427. So he told me he was going to do that, and I said, "Okay." He said, I need some pictures of, that car. Just so happened. We've got that car of Trevor's in the Henry Ford up there, so we call Matt Anderson, and he's the guy that keeps up with the museum. And said, "You got any pictures of the Gurney and Foyt car?" He sends this flash drive, and it's got tons of pictures, and it's got all these pictures of the engine compartment and everywhere. Well, he made the whole thing from those pictures.
Wow.
The headers, and. It's just amazing. I mean, he made a crankshaft, camshaft, and they're going to do we need to do a feature on it because we got pictures. My brother took tons of pictures as it was being built.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a little bitty 427. Made the valve covers, the carburetors. You can they're about the size of a dollar bill, and they had 2 4-barrels on it, and they look. I mean, if you didn't know they were little, if you didn't put the dollar bill beside of it, you would swear they're real. And since then, just in the last 2 weeks, he's taken and making because that engine wound up. It's at the Henry Ford in Dearborn. He said, "I want to make a little carburetor that runs." So one of those tiny ones. So he's built a carburetor now that runs.
Oh man.
So I mean, it's got all the little passageways.
And this is all basically by hand, right?
Yeah, I mean it's nothing but CNC or like that. We've got Bridgeports and things like that. The big machines that we've had for years up there. But that's what it's been. We got another boy up there, Beanie Belcher, that works for us, and he's like one of the greatest machinists that's ever been. I mean, if you can picture it, tell him what you're looking for, he can make it. And then Leonard, throw him in the middle of it. He does all the hand grinding. Everything is done by hand, like the shape of things, the markings and things. It's you just have to see it to understand it.
Yeah, definitely. We got to make a trip up there, Chris, pretty soon. Yeah, check it out.
We do.
We want to have Leonard on at some point too to kind of tell us all about that, and I mean all about a lot of things.
We can get all y'all in the same room together. That would be pretty sweet.
He and Leonard could tell you some stories, because everybody's like we may know the same story, but he'll know a different side of it than I will or Dale will, and it'll be the same story, but it'll be through somebody else's eyes and how they remember it. And he's got a really good memory he's like Dale. They can tell you what happened to him in 1962 at Charlotte, middle of the race. They burned a wheel bearing out, or they did this or they did that. They remember that. They remember the ones they won, but they remember the ones they lost too, and why.
Yeah.
It's amazing how they, I guess that's why they call them the generation, the greatest generation.
Yeah.
I think that's why they do that, because I think it's true.
I have to agree.
Yeah.
Well, Eddie, we've taken up a heck of a chunk of your time this afternoon.
Whole lot.
And,
And it's been an honor to be here.
yeah, it's been an honor for us to get to.
It was so cool we walked outside because you got here and Bradley comes over and he says, "Hey, Chris, Eddie just got here, but Chris got him." And then I said, "Oh, okay, cool. So we'll let them go around for a little bit." And we're looking. And then we turn the corner and it's you, Dale, Richard, Chris, and y'all are all just sitting there talking. And I was like, we kind of just paused for a second, like, wow, this is really cool. And it's just really, it's an honor to have you down here, man. It's really sweet.
No, the honor's all mine. I mean, I'd never been through the place, with Richard and Dale showing me, they showed me the room that Lee's car is in and all that. I'd never seen,
Low ceiling.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's so many similarities to where I grew up in our race shop. This is quite a bit bigger, but they did the same things we did. You had a gear room, you had this room and that room and all that stuff, and just being able to walk around with Richard Petty and Dale Inman, that's as good as it gets right there.
Absolutely. Well, we'll have to have you back at some point, because we really didn't even get into, Cale or David Pearson or, working with all those guys. And I've got another page of questions here for you that we're going to have to come back to at some point. But
we were just breaking the ice.
Yeah, that's great. I enjoyed it. Like I said, it's an honor to be here.
Yeah, it was great to have you. Thanks so much, and looking forward to doing it again soon.
Thank you, guys. I really enjoyed it.
All right, Petty fans. Well, there you have it. There's our episode with Eddie Wood, and don't know what I can tell you if you didn't like that one. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's just sit there and pinch yourself. You know what I mean? I mean, and especially to have him here for the first time since '84. And in '84, he was just here to buy a car, and then they couldn't find it because they hit it.
I'm counting this as really his first time getting to take in what is now Petty's Garage and Petty Museum.
Yeah.
It was once Petty Enterprises. It's just really cool to see. He came down, and Dale and Richard kind of took him.
We were supposed to start this podcast when he got here, and then they intercepted him, and I was so happy with that.
Oh, yeah.
It was so cool to see those guys. We turned the corner. We're trying to find them. We're like, where'd they go? They were gone for like an hour and a half. And we turned the corner, and it's Richard Petty, it's Dale Inman, and Eddie Wood. And, you toss Chris Hussey in there.
Oh, yeah.
Love you, Chris. But
just hanging out, having a conversation, talking about
all
things. All
four of those dudes, I mean, that was just so cool to see. And to be involved with it, too, is just, it's just wild.
Yeah, one of those days where it doesn't really feel like work, for sure.
Yeah.
But thanks, Eddie, for coming down and making the trip here. We've been trying to get him here for a few weeks now, and I'm just so glad that we did. So appreciative of his time. He was here for pretty much the entire day.
Yeah.
Whether it was hanging out or doing a podcast, number 1 or 2.
What does that mean?
Yeah, maybe some extra content coming down the line. So
who knows?
keep an eye out for that. But thanks again, Eddie. It was great to get to know
Yes.
him and hang out with him and spend some time listening to
Awesome guy.
everything he had to say. So.
Hopefully get to see him this weekend. What's going on this weekend?
We're in Darlington. Throwback weekend, baby. Let's go.
Tell him about that race car.
Man, well, we've hinted at it a few times on the show. If you noticed, we have.
Easter egg number 1.
This was Easter egg number 1. This was
number 2. That was Easter egg number 2.
correct. This is Easter egg number 2. It was in the Martha Jane episode, just chilling in front of my computer. So I don't know if you picked up on that. Easter egg.
Hey, somebody did.
They did.
A couple people commented.
Hey.
They found it.
Nice. Good job, guys.
Thank you for commenting, by the way.
Easter egg number 1 was in the Jarrett Andretti episode, where we had talked about, although I will say at the time we hadn't had anything finalized.
We didn't have anything even. that's the life lesson, is that the answer is always no if you don't ask.
Mm-hmm. So we figured on the Jared episode, we might as well try and speak it into existence, and we did. We're going to be running the number 43 STP John Andretti throwback from the year 1999, where he won at Martinsville. I know you all remember that. What a great win for 43, everybody at Petty, and just super happy we get to honor John. Obviously, or unfortunately, John passed away early last year, and we've been trying to help keep spreading awareness for the importance of colon screenings with the hashtag Check It For Andretti campaign that John started, and Jarrett and his mom and their family have kept going. And so it's very important to us to continue to spread that message, and you'll see that sticker in a few places on the car this weekend.
If I remember correctly, so Bradley made the paint scheme. So we always run Check It For Andretti, rear
roof strip,
right? So apparently, everything has to be approved by the King.
Of course.
And the King wanted additional Check It For Andretti stickers on the car just to give a little bit more real estate for that. And it's really cool to see the 43. So we have a throwback that is literally a throwback in the truest essence of a throwback. Yep. It is exactly what the
correct
car
number.
Like.
This is how you do a true throwback if you can make it work. I know it's tough. Correct number, correct colors, correct sponsor.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, STP.
We appreciate that. But even if you can't, I will say, this is kind of a little off topic, but in the terms of throwbacks, because we've seen a lot of them, some good, some, we'll say.
And the other John Andretti scheme is awesome.
That was great, yeah.
Awesome.
We'll give some credit to Ryan Daly and then the Starcom folks for making that happen. But
it looks slick. Number's not right, but it's slick.
Right. I will say
they can't help that.
You've got the three main pillars, right? You got the number, the colors, and the sponsor. Colors/design. We'll put those together, right? If there's one of those pieces of the puzzle that you can't make work, it's going to be the number.
And
but the number, we can even go further if we're really going to get into throwback talk here. Number font.
Oh, yeah. True.
Okay? So say that you can't change your number and you're going to do a different throwback to a different number, but you had the flexibility to change your number font. That I will accept.
Yes. Yeah. But took some pictures of this car. I think they turned out cool because I took them. But, you've
probably already seen them posted by now.
That day glow, it's seriously, when you see it in person, when y'all see it on TV, it glows. I mean, it literally glows. It is bright. It is fluorescent. You are not going to be able to miss the car.
On TV, it'll probably look red.
It might look a little red.
It's so funny how it works differently in cameras and stuff.
It depends on how they set their white balance. We'll see if
I'll get Fox on the horn and ask them if they got their white balance correct for our car.
Did you guys white balance correctly, coming from the guy that owns 3 cameras? But nothing crazy. I'm not going to tell Fox how to do their job.
So, anyways, that's kind of it for us today. Again, thanks Eddie Wood for coming down and being on this episode. Really loved having him. Can't wait to see this thing on our Camaro this weekend in Darlington.
I get to see it in person. I haven't been to a race since 2015.
Let's go.
I'm going to be there. I'm going to be rocking this shirt. I've already planned my outfit. Don't judge. But I'm super stoked. I am pumped.
It's going to be great. Thank you to everybody who either watches or listens to this podcast. Can't do it without you.
Where can they watch and listen to it if they don't know?
Well, if you want to watch it, YouTube's a great place to start.
It's a great place to start.
Yep. You can subscribe to our channel. We've seen a big jump in subscribers here recently.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody, for not only subscribing, but for telling your friends to subscribe as well and for sharing our stuff. If you just want to listen to the audio, say you're in the car, you're on a road trip, you're commuting to work. Great time for the RPM podcast.
It is. And you know what else is a great thing if you're driving down the road? If you're driving down the road, if you're in the left lane, you're going the speed limit, maybe you're going 5 over, you're just cruising, enjoying the sound of our voices. Take a look to your right and take a look behind you. Check all your mirrors. If there's a line of cars behind you and you've got space over your right shoulder to, put that little blinker on and get over, right now is your sign. Go ahead and do that.
Somebody must have been grinding your gears today on 220. Anyways.
Every day.
So
out of my way.
This would be a great way to spend your time while you're either commuting to work or on a road trip. And the best place to listen to the Rich Petty Motorsports podcast is either Apple Podcast or Spotify. I don't care which one, whichever one you prefer. You can find us both places. And
tell your friends and family.
That's about it.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, everybody, for listening.